Hello, everybody. It's time to get started. Let us begin the 2022 online seminar. I will be the MC for today. My name is Yamagishi. I am a member of the Catholic Committee for the Protection of Solidarity with Migrants. So today's theme is Ta리 타금, and we have received 100 applications, over 100 applications from participants. I understand there may be groups of people who are listening together, so we look forward to spending this day with you. We will send you some of the materials as we go in the chat, so you can look for that. We have translation or interpretation into English. Please choose the English from the globe mark at the bottom of your screen. If you're going to listen in Japanese, then you don't need to do that. Please understand that we will be recording this session. So I invite Father Yamanouchi to open the session. My name is Yamanouchi, Reverend Yamanouchi. I'd like to talk a little bit about what Ta리 타금 is and some of the activities that we are engaged in relation to today's theme. よろしくお願いします. So, can you see the screen, I hope? First, let me begin with the history of Ta리 타금. It was Ta리 타금 was established in 2000, or celebrated its 10th year in 2019. It was started under the guidance of the Holy Spirit and to determine priorities for the next 5 years. And it was something that was started so that we could meet in Rome in September of 2021 to meet the Pope. Ta리 타금 comes from the scriptures, from the book of Mark. It is a word that expresses our identity. It is an activity that seeks to provide hope and support to people who are engaged in consecrated living. The next slide, please. We are working with people who are reduced into the darkness of human trafficking. We seek to emancipate them from their dark reality. Regardless of a person's religion or race or age or sex, people who have been deprived of their liberty and sold as objects. These are the people that we seek to serve. I have been a bishop since 2018, and I have been given the opportunity to meet many people across the diocese for which I am responsible. There are about the first photographs. You can see the Tatebayashi Catholic Church sign. It is the Saitama Diocese that it belongs to. There are about 100,000 foreigners who come from communities of the Philippines, Vietnam, Brazil, Peru, and so on. So there are about 20,000 Japanese Catholics, but the community that surrounds us has about 100,000 foreigners. I have been to the church where Sister Mary, who will be speaking later, has been active for many years. There are many Vietnamese people who meet there. I was so surprised when I went there the first time and was very impressed by the work that they do. And there were many young people there on Sundays. You can see in the photographs the many people who gather, and you can see from their hats that it is Christmas time that they are celebrating here. I was very happy to spend this happy time with them. It is a place where people come to meet and get to know each other, and many couples have emerged from the fellowship there. It's a real blessed place. Next, it's a multicultural community. We can see that in the photographs here. Saitama Diocese has services in Japanese, English, Portuguese, Spanish, and Vietnamese. There are sometimes Korean as well. Every Sunday there is Mass is held there. Because of the COVID situation, it was difficult to gather as we did in the past, but we are returning to gathering as we did. The Vietnamese and other foreign residents of the area are not just joyful, but they come together with a real heart of service. They participate very actively in keeping the church grounds clean and looking after the garden. And many of them bring their friends with them, and many people have been baptized there as well. One of the activities there is a regular open house. This is a photograph from 1988. I was very touched by this activity. It has been going on for 35 years now. It serves people who are facing financial difficulties or who are facing challenges with their visa and residency status. we are all strengthened by the words of the scripture. Ephesians 2:19-20 is quoted there. Under the pandemic, as I have been observing the Portuguese-speaking community from Brazil, some have fallen away from the church or have difficulty participating in their local communities because their Japanese is limited. There actually have been some growth in the number of people who have suffered under coronavirus itself. And sad cases where people even who have not reached the age of 50 pass away, sometimes for lack of access to medical service. So people facing many of these challenges and difficulties come together and find community here. Many children come as well. But some people find it difficult to continue to come to church because of language barriers and so on. But the work that is being done in the church tries to reach out and make a place for all of these people. There are people from various backgrounds, various places around the world who are in our community, but sometimes it is difficult to establish relationships with people across these differences. So all these Filipinos and Brazilians and Vietnamese, they tend to congregate in their language groups, and so I've observed that it's not easy to for these different communities to come together, and so my feeling is that our challenges ahead involve making it possible for these different communities to come together more as one. When Pope Francis became the Pope, he used the word balcony. It was a word that he used to describe people who sort of stand on their balcony and look down on the world, but don't come down to the ground. And so it's a theme of the Pope as well for us as people of faith to come down and to the street level and to engage in the world. There are, I think, especially of the people who are in Japan as technical interns. So many of them who need fellowship and support. And so I'd like to read the prayer of Saint Bakita, a native of Sudan. Let me read this. Saint Giuseppina Bequita, you were kidnapped and sold into slavery when you were only 7 years old and suffered terribly from cruel masters. Eventually you came to understand the profound truth that God, not man, is the master of all human beings and all life. Be the intercessor of all those who do not know the love of God the Father and who cannot defend their dignity. Surrender to the merciful God so that the chains that hold you captive may be broken. May God himself deliver all those who are threatened, hurt, and wronged by the chains of modern human trafficking. Bring comfort to those who have been freed from bondage. Heal their wounds and lead them to look at Jesus with hope and trust. May we not become indifferent to the events that are happening around us, but may we open our eyes and see the misery and wounds of many brothers and sisters who have been deprived of their dignity and freedom. We pray and intercede for us that we may hear the cries of those who seek help. By our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Okay, thank you everybody. Have a good meeting. Thank you
very much, Father
Reverend
Yamanouchi.
Yamanouchi.
Now this is one of the things that we do need to focus on.
Talked to us a little bit about the kinds of challenges that are facing him in his
focus
diocese.
of our work in the Catholic Church. And so I'd now like to move on to one of the main presentations, and I'd like to introduce our next speaker.
Let me
The theme of today's picture is the issues of technical intern training program and the new acceptance system for foreign workers. Now, this is a system that has gained a lot of criticism abroad, and up until now, there are a couple of different points that have been in particular focus of this criticism. In this year, in 2022, it is the 5th year that this system is being looked at and renewed, and so we want to make use of this opportunity. And the debate about the renewal of the system is currently undergoing within the government, and we're looking at some of the human rights violations that have occurred within this system. And there are a number of people who are working to improve the situation, and there are certain questions about the ways in which that this system should exist, or what are ways in which that it can improve. I would also like to take this opportunity today to talk about what are some of the activities we have been involved in to both improve this system as well as to assist people who are trapped within it. Today, with regards to the flow of today, we will be hearing a keynote speak from Mr. Hatate, and then we will be hearing reports from specific case reports. We will then have a question and answer session, and we anticipate to be closing at 4 p.m. Now, for those of you who have questions during the presentation today, by all means, please send them into the chat box, and these will be picked up and answered at the end during the question and answer session. And so on that note, I would like to move on to our keynote speaker for today, which is the issues of the acceptance system for foreign workers, the limit of rotation policies, including technical interns. Spoken by the committee member for the Advocacy Network for Foreign Trainees, Commissioner of the Japan Civil Liberties Union, Akira Hatate. Hatate-san, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I will just share my screen here. Okay, hopefully everyone can see this. Yes, that's all fine, no worries. And so once again, my name is Hatate. Thank you very much for coming to hear me speak today. Today, as was spoken earlier by Father Yamanouchi, one of the key focuses today And also, as introduced, I'll be talking about some of the themes introduced by Father Yamanouchi, as well as some of the themes introduced by Yamagishi-san. And I'll be including some of that in my talk today. So what I'll be talking about, we'll be talking about some of the changes to the current system. But firstly, before we get to that, we'll talk about what is the current situation and what are the issues in the system as it currently exists today. And so then looking at the current situation, what is the needed changes that need to happen in order for this system to improve? So these are some of the points I'd like to be talking about today. There's about 50 slides, and I've got about 40 minutes to speak about them. So I will be moving relatively rapidly. So please bear with me on that front. So firstly, I'd like to begin. Now here we have the projected future demographics for Japan as of 2017. Now, this is based on 2015 figures. Now this is around the time that in the 2020 data should be available. However, we don't have that at the moment. There's been a few things that have happened. So at the moment, we are using the 2015 data for today. Sorry if my screen looks a little strange. So there's a lot of information here, but so one of the key point here is what is expected to happen by 2065. And the anticipation is that the population of the population of Japan will decrease to about 88 million by 2065. And so this means this is assuming that on average there is a decrease of about 3.9 million people decreasing from the population every year. Now this is the projection based on what is currently happening. So there is a sharp diagonal decrease to the current population lines. And so this is one thing to keep in mind, that this is something that is happening in the backdrop to Japan. Now, at the same time, when we look at the number of foreign residents in Japan, we can see up until we have from 2015 onwards, we have annual data, and we see up until 2019, we had nearly 3 million. There was nearly 3 million foreign residents in Japan, long-term foreign residents. And then from 2020, from the outbreak of COVID-19 onwards, that number has since decreased. Now, when we look at this is as of at the end of December last year, at the end of December 2021, we can see here that looking at what types of visas are foreign residents, what types of visas, and also what countries foreign residents in Japan are coming from. Now we can see that the biggest group come from permanent residents. Then we have special permanent residents, and now the third largest group, third largest type of visa, is these special technical interns. So these are people who have come to Japan to work, and they are the third largest group. Now, when we look on a national basis, the largest group is from China. The second group is it was for a long time, the second largest group was Korea, or those from the Korean Peninsula for a very long time, but at the moment it is now Vietnam, or people from Vietnam make up the second largest group of foreign residents in Japan. Now, when we look at changes that have happened over the course of the last 10 years, we can see some of these changes are quite evident. This is including in terms of both the nations that they're coming from, as well as the types of visas that they are staying on. Now, looking at within COVID, we have from the end of 2019, and then over the next 2 years, what's happened by the end of 2021, we can see there is a change in the figures. Now, when we look, you can see there's the triangle, the areas indicated with a triangle. You can see where there has been a noticeable change. And particularly, you can see that in the technical interns, there has been a large decrease, as well as in exchange students. These groups have decreased largely between and this is due to restrictions on entries into the country. And these numbers have changed greatly over the course of 2 years. Now, for example, when we look at the technical interns, as a group, this has increased quite large. This group has increased largely compared with 10 years ago. However, people, due to COVID, these people have not been able to continue these activities. And we are starting to see that due to COVID, because they can't continue, these numbers are now dropping quite rapidly, unlike other figures. Now, when we look at the number of foreign workers, now when we want to break down those numbers a little bit further amongst foreign workers in Japan, now there's just about 1.7 million foreign workers in Japan. Now, this includes a number of different sectors, and we can imagine there's going to be a little bit of variety or a little bit of room to move on those or those numbers, but we can assume it is slightly over 1.7 million, and just under 200, just under 2 million foreign workers. Now, when we break that figure down, we can see people with technical qualifications. And then we have people on the left, for example, we have people who are based, who have a personal residence, which is to say that they are typically permanent residents. So for a long time, permanent residents made up the largest number of foreign workers. Their residency status was that they were a permanent resident, and they made up the largest part of the foreign working population in Japan. However, we can now see that the technical intern system, there is now approximately 350,000 of these people, of these foreign workers who are now here in Japan, who have come as part of this system, as part of this program. Now, we also do have the technical international exchange and humanities visa, which is just under 300,000. And then we also have the special activities, which is approximately 65,000 people. Now, when we divide this up by countries, we have Vietnam makes up a very large percentage of this, approximately 450,000 people. China, including Hong Kong and Macau, makes up just under 400,000. And Vietnam is clearly the largest group of the foreign working population in Japan. Now, for those of you who are interested, you can see some of the changes in figures of different sectors over the years. And you can see where I've taken this information from. Now, the question is, well, where are these people working? If they've come to Japan to work, where are they working? Now, obviously, there are labor shortages, and these are being filled by foreign workers. To divide these up, or the industries most heavily affected, I'd like to talk a little bit about how these industries are affected. We have agriculture, nursing, and construction. in agriculture, we have all these key industries or key workers. We have quite a need here. Now, in 2015, there are about 1.7 people working in this sector. However, 5 years later, there was 1.3 million, meaning that there's a decrease of about 400,000 people within 5 years. And one thing that's also quite important to note here is that nearly 70% of people working in the agriculture sector are above the age of 65. And now this is the current state of affairs within the agricultural sector. And so there are a number of people who are coming to Japan to work in Japan's agricultural sector to address this labor shortage. And the number of foreign workers in the agricultural sector are now just under 40,000. So they're not a huge proportion, but there are quite a number. But there is a significant demand for workers in this sector. Now, in nursing, it's estimated that by 2025, there will be a need for approximately 2.5 million, just over 2.4 million extra workers. And currently there is a shortage of more than 300,000 workers within the nursing sector. Now, one of the reasons is that by 2025, this is one of the times by which the baby boomer generation will be most needing care. And now there are a number of different types of residency permits that one can have in order to be in the nursing industry in Japan. There's the technical intern, there's special activities, there's many different types of residency permits or visas that you can have to work in the nursing sector. But it's thought that there would be around just over 40,000 foreign workers within the nursing sector as of the end of October 2021. But there is, without a doubt, there is strong demand for workers within the nursing sector. And when we look at construction, there are around 5 million people working in the construction sector. And we have, a great need for work here. And there are currently just over 110,000 foreign workers within the construction sector in Japan. And so this is a sector that is very much facing this reality of needing extra workers, particularly looking at that 70,000 of those 110,000 workers are part of the technical intern training program. And the construction industry in particular is an industry that is prone to some of the issues or showcasing some of the problems with the technical intern training system as it exists today. But this is a very serious problem that these three industries are facing in Japan. Now, when we look a little bit at the history, we can see that there are a number of different ways in which this system has developed over time. Now, one of the things, there are a number of different things that have contributed to the development of this system. And so I encourage people to read through this. But one of the points that we would say is the sort of start of the problems was in 1993, which was the first time at which this system was introduced. And this was really for training purposes, it was seen. And then by the time 2009, the Immigration Control Act was then modified. and this was then removing it from the training section of the technical intern training program was removed. And then by the time we look at 2017, then the Technical Intern Act was then brought into effect. And then in 2018, the Immigration Control Act was amended, was then updated again. And so we'll just have a quick changeover in our interpreters.
Switch the interpreters here, so move on to the next slide. In the previous slide, I talked about the timeline. This is the Japan revitalization strategy that was revised in 2014. It reflects the thinking of the Japanese government regarding its policies towards the acceptance of foreign workers. Various specialized areas of labor in construction, shipbuilding, kaigo is elderly care, and other various forms of manufacturing sector jobs. There are special provisions for foreign workers in the agriculture sector, and also a special category for Nikkei. This is Japanese ethnic background, fourth generation special activities. Although the number there is not so large as you can see. But the numbers here are not so large, so these provisions have not really contributed to improvement of the labor shortage situation. The next slide. I have a chart here that sort of describes the different categories of residency status and some of their characteristics. I'll just highlight some of those. In the second column there is a category of residency called special activities. And towards the middle, where my cursor is now, you can see that there are X marks saying for whether or not family members can be entered into Japan as well as the worker, him or herself. So this is a problem with the Japanese system. It bars family members from coming to Japan with their mother or father. So these are some problems. Of course, family members is not just spouses, but today there are more and more issues concerning the children of these people. So more thought needs to be given to these issues as they affect the families. I'll focus a little bit now on the technical interns. I've already passed the about halfway mark in the timeline, but I'm only about 1/3 of the slides through, so I'll have to race on. So there are over 400,000 now in Japan as technical interns. The numbers have, as the graph indicates, increased steadily, except during the COVID period. New entries to Japan in 2019 was over 200,000, but that fell to about 80,000 in the last year. So, of course, this indicates that this is a system that is very much impacted by a special event like the pandemic. You can see the largest part of the pie graph here represents Vietnamese people. Almost 60% of the total are Vietnamese. So it's fair to say that the issues of technical interns in Japan is very much an issue of Vietnamese people in Japan. This is a chart that shows from 2012 to 2020 the changes in the numbers and balances of the various home countries from which technical interns come. So from China, before 2012, it was actually even higher than this, in the 80% range, but the numbers have steadily declined from 73.5% in 2012 to just under 17% in 2020. In 2012, Vietnamese represented only 11%, but now it's over 55%. So these why this has happened. The largest factor would be the increase in the average wages that prevail in China. So the economic attractiveness of coming to Japan has fallen over this period. And we expect that perhaps as wages in Vietnam rise as well, the same might happen with Vietnamese technical interns. This is wages in Japan, an international comparison. This is OECD data from 2020. The blue bar graph is the average of the OECD countries, and red is Japan's average. So it's considerably lower than the OECD average. To the right of Korea, to the right of Japan, 3 bars over is Korea. So the actual wages in Korea on this graph are higher now than Japan's. These are wages of foreign workers in Japan. 164,000 yen is the average monthly remuneration for technical interns. And of course, from this they would be deducted various benefits and taxes and so on. So it's certainly not a good wage. in the case of technical interns, the companies that hire them pay to the management organization, that's sort of the middleman organization, service fee. And about 30,000 yen is what is paid by the receiving company to the middleman management company. And because there is this burden on the receiving companies, the employers, this is something that puts downward pressure on the remuneration to the technical interns as well. The purpose of the technical intern is ostensibly to prepare people, to endow people with skills that can be taken home, but the fact is that in many cases people are not finding work in the areas in which they were supposed to have been trained here. So less than or about 60% in the case of Vietnam. Only about 60% are finding work in the designated areas. These are charts that pie graphs that show the number of people whose residency status have been canceled. Nearly 3/4 of these are people who came as technical interns. So it indicates that there's a real concentration of problems for these people. Another place where we're seeing a lot of issues is people who become pregnant during their stay here as technical interns. There have been many instances where a woman who has become pregnant is forcibly returned to their home country rather than receiving any care. The left graph, the blue part, the blue part of the graph indicates the portion of people who worked in workplaces where there were various sort of written limitations and requirements placed on them regarding pregnancy. And what kinds of limitations is written on the right. This is some information about how children are affected by the technical internship program. In the case of the category number 1, last year in June, there was a Ministry of Justice notice that permits 6 months of specific activities after making the applicant pledge to change to another status of residence or return to Japan within the period of stay at the time of the birth. There have been debates in the National Diet legislature about this issue, but so far the government has not made it easier for people who have given birth or who have families to unite in Japan and to stay in Japan. There are very deep human rights issues related to here, and it continues to be a problem. We feel that this requires further attention. So we have worked with Catholic organizations like JCARM to do a survey and hear the stories of people who have been affected by this. I'm going to sort of move forward because we're racing for time. So let me switch here to Daniel.
And so now moving quite a fair bit ahead through my slides, I will now pick things up as our interpreters change over. So I'm going to jumping now to number 34. Now talking about some of the changes to the technical intern system. Now the awareness of this issue has been growing in Vietnam. So I'd like to talk a little bit about what's been happening there. So there has been, there are growing voices urging for improvements to this system. So in 2020, in October, there was a modification to the law with regards to Vietnamese working overseas. And so as to specifically with regards to that, I'm just like to point out here what in slide 35, it shows that piece of legislation, but I'll just explain it a little bit here at number 34. In March of 2021, it was found that the office responsible for foreign labor was not properly monitoring the foreign labor being conducted, and this was so this was found and declared to be the case. Now, as of this year in 2022, there was someone who was going to be the incoming Vietnamese ambassador to Japan. And this person was basically found guilty of corruption. They had been buying flights at an artificially high price. And there are, increasing indications that there are problems with the government itself. And so, as most recently, as of the 1st of May, there was a high-level prime ministerial meeting between Vietnam and Japan. And this was looking to remove remove bad faith intermediaries within the technical intern training system. So there are a number of movements that are currently underway to improve the system as it exists today. So now, one of the things I wanted to speak most about was down on the rotation system.
So I wanted to talk about the rotation particularly today. There is a limit to the number of years that a person can work here. So there's a rotation system that is put into place. With the pandemic and other effects, when the movement of people is affected, it creates a situation where people who are supposed to go back to their countries, but it's difficult to bring in new people. So it is really disruptive to the smooth flow of this rotation. So in addition to this, this also presents risks to the companies that rely on these technical interns. So rather than the smaller companies that the workers work for, it's really more the larger corporations that are sort of pushing for this, but there is a movement in the corporate sector to bring human rights issues closer to the front of the considerations. One of the problems with the technical internship program is that because they are expected to return to their countries, the accepting companies do not see them as being being a workforce that they can rely on for the future of their companies. So one of the problems in people who have been in Japan for a time, if they have been here as a technical intern, the time that they have spent here does not count towards their application for permanent residency. That's another problem. And another problem with that has been criticized a lot is the fact that in spite of what the sales pitch is, the system is not really set up to meet the needs of the sending country, but is designed and functioning as an assistance program for Japanese companies. So we need to continue to work to have the system become more in line with what it was ostensibly set up to do. Issues that we need to continue to press for is labor rights, basic labor rights, more stability in the period of stay, more open paths to extending periods of stay, and make it easier for shifting from one residency status to another. We call this sort of settlement style system that we think needs to be, we need to move towards to allow people to settle. So any system has risks in it, and we've talked about some of those here. But in order to sustain it over the long term, we need to deal with the risks that we see, and what we think is the best thing to aim for is to end the system as it is now. And the National Association, National Union of Bar Associations has been advocating for a complete revamping of a situation that protects the rights and interests of the people who are coming. So it is not just a small voice that is calling for these changes, but media and the corporate sector are also joining in the calls for modification. We are now preparing, it's going to start tomorrow, a caravan, an information caravan that will start in Sapporo and will gradually move south across Japan to raise awareness about these issues from one city to the next. So we invite and ask you to think with us about how these the problems can be finished. I apologize for skipping through, having to skip through some of the slides, but if anyone is particularly interested in any of the things that I skipped over, then I invite you to ask. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Hatade.
very much. So I'd now thank you for telling us all this fascinating information about, or concerning information about what's currently happening in the system as it exists today. Despite being a very technical topic, you explained it very clearly. Now, at the end, as mentioned, there will be a question and answer session, and so there will be. So if you have questions from what Hatade-san was talking about, by all means, I certainly encourage you to put them into the chat to ask them later. Now, the 50-odd slides that he had ready, those will be made available. So for those of you who are interested, by all means, I certainly encourage you to download them and to take a look. And so with regards to the caravan that was mentioned at the end, now, if you have a look in the chat box, if you have a look at the URL and go to our homepage, you can find more information about that there. So next up, we have three speakers who are coming from different areas of Japan to talk about some of the activities that they've been engaged in on this topic. So firstly, from the Sapporo Diocese, we have Nishichizu from the Committee for Migrants and Refugees of Sapporo Diocese. Thank you very much. I'm from Sapporo Diocese. I am on the Committee for Refugees and Migrants. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I'd just like to share my screen now. Oh, sorry, hang on just one moment. Okay, everyone can see this, hopefully. Yes? Is your camera on? We can't seem to quite see you. We can't see your face, unfortunately. I think it is. So I can't see my own face. Oh, there we go. Okay, no worries. Okay, so I'd like to begin now. So firstly, with regards to give you some information about the about the Sapporo Diocese. Now, this covers 56 churches in Hokkaido, and this the Sapporo Diocese covers all of Hokkaido. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that the Sapporo Diocese and Hokkaido is very, very large. Now, to travel from Sapporo to Hakodate or something, or an area like that, can take about 2 hours. Now, I do have this illustration here, but when traveling within Hokkaido, it can often be faster to travel by plane, in fact, within the region. Now, Hokkaido has a population, and I've got a couple of numbers here to show you some numbers. Now, the size of our congregation of the Sapporo Diocese makes about 3% of the total population of Hokkaido, and the foreign population makes up about 7%. So there are approximately 10,000 Vietnamese foreign residents in Japan. Now, Vietnamese residents make up the largest number of foreign residents in Japan. So firstly, I'd just like to talk a little bit about the Hakodate district. Now, from a couple of years ago, the mission school students from the mission school, as well as university students, have been working with technical interns together. And now, around 80 kilometers away, there's the Yakumo church, and they have been working with adherents of the congregation and reaching out and working together. And this has been it's always a very multicultural grouping here. And this is what's happening at the moment. Now, within Hakodate, since the COVID-19 crisis has begun, one of the activities has been providing food aid or food support to Vietnamese technical interns. Now, this has been around more than 20 times that this has taken place. Now, if you look on the left, you can see this is where we're dividing up the goods, and this is where using rooms in the church to do these activities. Now, in the middle is the actual goods or the actual aid that people receive. And now there are many women who are among the technical interns. This includes sanitary products and period products for them. And on the right, you can see when things have been delivered. Now, next, we have when, for example, COVID-19 related financial aid was being handed out. Now, this is being done by each municipal district within Hokkaido. However, this is all in Japanese and can be quite complicated, and so they would provide support. They would use a Facebook Messenger, for example, and provide support to the Vietnamese technical interns so that they would be able to fill these out. So they would say, please, that's what this means, or please write this here, and they would provide that information to them. Now, next, looking at the Asahikawa district. Now, this photo was taken in 2019, just before COVID happened. This was a gathering at the local church. Now, the Vietnamese youth in the area had made a local group, and they really used this to talk about the type of role that the church could serve in society. Now, amongst the various kinds of activities they were engaged in, one thing that was created was Nam Thai, holding together, was a group that was created. And this was something thought up by some of the Japanese members of the congregation who had met with a number of the Vietnamese youth who were praying at the church. Now, this is run by adherents of the in the Asahikawa district, and it is specifically aimed at providing support for foreign technical interns, regardless of whether they are believers or not. And lastly, we have Sapporo as well. Now, this photo was taken in for New Year's in 2021, and when everyone had gathered all together. And this was a lot of the Vietnamese congregation had gathered under the Japanese priest, and once a month the prayers would be done in Vietnamese. The sermon would be done in very simple Japanese. And one of the things is that these Vietnamese youth, that they wanted support, was not the case. They didn't gather at the church because they wanted support. They gathered because they wanted to pray. So if you look in the middle photo, for example, was for a number of the youth who had lost work due to COVID. And so because they had the time, they gathered at the Catholic Center. On the right, we have, even when there's not a mass on, youth would often gather at the church to pray. And this was quite important. And on the left, you could see that, unfortunately, when the priest was transferred, the previously mentioned priest was transferred, they weren't able to gather at the church anymore. And so during Golden Week, they gathered in a local park where they were able to talk, and they were able to pray, which is very important. And lastly, I'd like to share with you a real life example of something that has happened. You can see these two women here. Both of them are Vietnamese, and they both fell pregnant in Japan and gave birth. So firstly, I'd like to talk about the woman on the right with her baby. So this is, we have person A-san. Now, within a few months of coming to Japan, she found that she was pregnant. Now, when it was found that she was pregnant, she was then unable to work. And at the start of 2021, in January 2021, she was fired, and she was kicked out of the dormitory that she was staying in. Now, the managing organization gave her the choice of she could either go to a dormitory that was in Chiba, or she could rent a room in Sapporo. Now, the father of the child rented a room in Sapporo, and this was agreed upon by the managing organization as well. And now this was her first year in Japan. So at this time, she couldn't really speak that much Japanese. So it was very much, she relied on the support from the father of the child. And then upon consulting with both the company and with the managing organization, it was eventually decided that she would return to Vietnam, and the flight fees and everything were paid by the managing organization. Now, on the different side, we have person B-san. Now, in her third year, she obtained the Japanese language proficiency test level 3, and because of this, she was then changed to a special activities or special skills visa. However, she wasn't able to find a job, remained in the same company, even though her pay did improve. Now, when she reported that she was pregnant, she was then fired and removed from the dormitory. However, because she was no longer part of the technical intern training program, there was no support for her at this stage, no support from the managing organization. The father of the child was in Saitama, was working in Saitama. And so she eventually stayed in the room of A-san. Now, she was not a Catholic, believer, but because the point for her was that because she was now no longer part of the technical intern training program, there was no support for her. So when she returned home, when she went to return to GPAM, everything fell upon her to organize this. And so so it was simply said that it was, well, for the case of B-san, it is completely out of our jurisdiction, it is out of our control, it is irrelevant to us, and there was no support for her. So lastly is this idea of self-responsibility. And so the goal is to gain skills. The goal of the technical intern program is to gain skills. However, when she did obtain the skills and then she was unable to work, it is certainly understandable that people are going to have accidents or pregnancies or injuries or things that happen outside of work. However, it is very important to remember that these are real people. And we had created a society whereby this person she wasn't given any support. She didn't have anyone that she was able to speak to consult with when dealing with these issues. And I think it's very important that we have a society whereby we can listen to these voices, even though they are very small. Sorry, we very quick at the end there, but that is all for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nish-san. So it's helpful to hear about the situation of people who find themselves in various binds while they are here as technical interns. Next, we will move to Saitama Kyoku, Saitama Diocese Open House. Sister Letilan will be speaking to us next. Please. We thank you for the introduction, Yamagichi-san. I will show my PowerPoint now and share that with you. Maria Telan is my name. I am a sister with the Diocese of Saitama. Today I'll be talking on the subject of the issues facing Vietnamese technical interns in 2022. There was 440,000 Vietnamese in Japan. There are many of these in the Saitama area. The number of young people, especially who are technical interns in the Saitama Diocese, has been increasing over the years. We exist to serve the faith needs of the Vietnamese people community. We provide pastoral care and assistance to especially young people, not just in our area, but also we receive consultations, people who come to us for consultation from across Japan. One of the difficult questions is women who find themselves becoming pregnant during their stay here. From January until now, just in this year, there are over a dozen women who have encountered this problem. And of these, there were 7 cases where the father would not take responsibility for the pregnancy. And a woman who becomes pregnant feels a lot of anxiety when she considers bringing this to the attention to the company that she serves. and of course being unmarried as well is another source of difficulty, especially where the father runs away from his responsibility. One of the things that we have used on occasion is to provide an anti-pregnancy pill. One of the things that another of our activities is to provide sex education for young people in Vietnamese language. We are very glad to have doctors with Vietnamese background who can provide this in Vietnamese language. According to labor accident report from 2020, while the number of workplace deaths and injuries has declined generally across the country, there has been an increase in the number of such incidents among foreign workers in Japan. There have been 30 deaths in the period that was covered. This is the numbers of people who die from labor incidences. 404 at the top was the total number of deaths among technical interns. Below that was foreigners, and at the lowest number was Japanese. So the foreign workers are experiencing more injuries and deaths. And that was a graph by nationality as well, and Vietnamese are experiencing the most workplace injuries and deaths. This is a photograph of small pagodas, prayer pagodas that are placed on a shelf according to Buddhist tradition. These are prayers for those who have passed away. Last year, we had there were about 50 funerals that were held just in the last year. This is a young man who experienced the loss of his fingers in a workplace accident. He was unable to speak Japanese yet, and but he found a lawyer to consult with. And so we are limited in what we can do for them, but going with them to the doctor, taking him to a hospital, and linking him with lawyers, these are some of the things that we do. Domestic violence is also an issue. Violent language and violent acts are unfortunately happening too often at homes as well. In an effort to deal with this problem, we held a study session with a Japanese lawyer who worked with an interpreter to talk about the rights, especially workplace rights that apply to workers in Japan. Especially with the coronavirus situation, many people are having trouble making financial ends meet and keeping food on their tables. And so another activity we've done is to gather donations and package foods for people who need them. This is a photograph of one young person, technical intern. He caught the coronavirus. There were 4 others who were living with him, who also contracted the virus. And they contacted health authorities, and they didn't have a phone. And so although they tried to reach out for medical assistance, they were refused service. A Dr. Yamamura was finally reached, and he kindly arranged for medical care, including the calling of an ambulance. Mr. Yamamura has been particularly caring towards us and has helped to fund and create an information video on health issues as well. Here is a monthly free consultation that he holds with people who have health issues and questions. This is Chofu Church. Not Reverend. Dr. Yamamura holds occasional presentations as well, so that was in Chofu. So we are doing our best to try to meet all of these needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Dielan. And this is to tell us some of the issues that are faced by some of the women who have become pregnant during their time in Japan, and some of as well as some of the support that is being provided by the church. Thank you very much. And so, lastly, from the Fukuoka diocese, we have Miss Kazuko Ariyoshi. Thank you very much, everyone. My name is Kazuko Ariyoshi from the Committee of Migrants and Refugees of the Fukuoka Diocese. Now I also volunteer at the Omura Immigration Office, and I have also been involved with a support network and support organization for people in the technical intern system. And I will collaborate with a number of different people, particularly the Japan Civil Liberties Union as well. And we hear a lot of different issues, and many of the companies that are receiving these technical interns do not have any linguistic infrastructure to provide support to their Vietnamese interns. For example, in the past, at the Omura office, there was a former Vietnamese technical intern who was arrested. Now, he said that in Vietnam, I had heard that the working conditions were good and the pay was good. You should really come to Japan. However, this ill-willed broker, in fact, created a lot of debt for this individual. And when he said, there are lots of he said, I became the victim in coming to Japan. Now, in order to come to Japan, he had borrowed a large amount of money. The wages were very poor and it was very hard labor. And so he ended up overstaying and leaving his work. As a result of overstaying his visa, he was then detained and after forcibly repatriated. And he said, I deeply regret the pain that I've caused my parents. Something that he told me through tears, and I'll never forget this. Now, the technical interns, they're not cheap single-use labor. They are the youth upon which the future depends. They are people, and this is something I very strongly believe. With regards to the issues, some are surrounding the technical interns. This is not simply something that just ends upon one consultation. And so I'd like to share some of the activities we've done over the past year. At the end of May 2021, there were two young women, two Vietnamese technical interns, who reported in the south of Fukuoka that they had been received verbal abuse from their boss, that they were not being paid fairly. So we went to their apartment with an interpreter, and we went to speak to them. They were very scared of this boss, so we cared for them there, and we told their boss about this, their employer about this. Now, the next day, we then went to the Fukuoka Immigration Office, OTIT, and we then afterwards spoke to the managing organization, and we arranged for them to stay in a shelter. And we found a lawyer for them as well, and to begin the negotiation process. Now, there were 3 points of the negotiation. So there was a difference in the actual content of what they did at their contract. Now, the contract said that they were to plastics processing. However, what they did was, in fact, wrapping candies, courier purchases, as well as also being forced to everyday walk their employer's dog. Secondly, there was unfair pay. Now, their bank book, which had, they weren't able to keep their bank book. Their boss was holding onto it, and he said that they would not allow them to hold onto it. And so the pay was coming from their employer, but they weren't able to control this at all. Lastly, as well, also their pension and health insurance, their documents with regards to this were controlled by their employer as well. The third point is that almost every day there was verbal abuse from their employer. And when their fellow employees would see this, they would pretend to not see. And this was a severe amount of mental harassment that they received. The result of this in August was they found a replacement facility for them to work at in Ibaraki, and they moved there and continued their training. Now, on the 1st of October 2021, in Yamaguchi Prefecture, there was a young Vietnamese lady, a young Vietnamese girl who was 22. She had come to Japan in February of 2019, and she came pregnant in her 5th month in Japan. She left work on the 30th of September and was planning to return to Vietnam on the 7th of October. On the 18th of August, when she fell sick, she found out at the hospital that she was in fact pregnant. Now, she was told to take time off work by the doctor until the 1st of September. Now, when she then returned to work on the 1st, she was then told that she was okay to return to work. However, she was then she wanted to return to work. However, she was told to take time off, and she was not being paid fairly, or the insurance money was not being used appropriately at this time. Now, she had said that the time she had taken off, she wanted to use her paid leave for this time. However, the company refused to allow this to be the case. They refused to recognize this request of hers. And they told her that she did not have any paid leave that she could use for this time. And they said that their rules, the company's rules, they said for when you are unable to work due to pregnancy, you are forced to take time off, and at this point you will not be paid. She wanted to continue work after giving birth. However, the employer, the head of the company, said, you broke the promise that you would not fall pregnant, and do not cause us any more problems than you already have. Now, she came and she consulted with us. She explained what had happened, and then on the 7th of October, she returned home to Vietnam. She safely gave birth, and the negotiations between the managing organization and her former employer are ongoing. In October in 2021, a NPO, the Hope Project, and a Japanese person H, had received an inquiry from a young Vietnamese man. This young man was working at a pressing factory. Now, he had a friend stay at his facility at the dormitory. Now, his employer became violent at this point, and in fact, his boss said that if you want to continue your work, I'm going to shave you, and forcibly shaved his head and shaved him bald. Now, the violence that he received on the 6th of July created great shock, and this young man was then later diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. He then was able to deliver a claim. He was then able to lodge a claim for damages. Now, after joining the union, he was able to continue negotiations on this point. The company, on their side, said that he was breaking company rules. He had smoked. He had been smoking tobacco and cigarettes when he had said that he wouldn't. However, after consultation and in response to the requests of the lawyer of the young man, they were able to find video footage of the violence that he had received. And this young man was then able to work in nursing and is now happily working. Now, lastly, on the 15th of January 2022, one inquiry with regards to violence that we received on our hotline. There was a young man who was working in North Kyushu at a construction firm. During work, he had been beaten over the head, and he was receiving this on a daily basis. He was drawn on his face, and to the point of drawing blood. he said that there had been a slight let-up, but the violence was still continuing. Now, person N then was told that he would be forced to take time off work because of the injuries he'd received. He'd be forced to take time off work at no pay. Now, the young man who'd received this could not believe or could not accept these circumstances and called the hotline. On the 4th of February, the negotiations with the company lawyer began. However, at this point, we pointed out that the violence that was received was in violation of the fair work policies. And the promise was made that this violence would not continue, and it was also guaranteed that the pay that he should have received during his time would also be properly applied. And that is all. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for giving us information about what is happening in Fukuoka.
Thank you very much for telling us about the work in Kyushu. There have been various forms of collaboration with civil society organizations and between civil society organizations and the Catholic Church in various parts of Japan, and so it's been very helpful to hear about all of the work that is going in different places. We have some questions in the chat already, so I will pick up some of these questions and go ahead. There's one in Japanese. The first one is for Mr. Hatate. I have a couple of questions on labor rights. Do Japan's labor laws apply to technical interns, and is this being explained to them when they come? When technical interns, or before they come to Japan, they are supposed to receive 1 to 2 months of orientation about what awaits them in Japan. And there are classes and instruction regarding labor rights as well. So there are laws that pertain to the technical internship training system. Also, there are laws regarding immigration, Japan's immigration laws. And so these and some other sundry laws are instructed to the people who are coming to Japan. So there is about 2 hours in each of these areas that they receive instruction in. This is on the surface. Of course, the textbook that I use for teaching labor law in Japan to university students is 1,000 pages. So it is hard to convey in 2 hours the all of what is important and pertinent to these people. So I can only guess that the instruction that they receive is not sufficient, and because the instruction would be usually done using an interpreter, this means half of the time is spent in interpreting, so the actual content of the instruction would be maybe only an hour. So but it is I'm sure explained to them, and we should all be aware here that labor laws that apply to Japanese laborers in Japan do apply to the protection of technical interns as well. They're not a lot of technical interns can join labor unions, but sometimes situations arise that triggers them to enter labor unions. So that was the second question about labor unions. There's a question, the next question is, why are there so many people coming from Vietnam? In the past, Taiwan occupied a fairly large portion of the foreign workers coming here. Sorry, this is as a destination for Vietnamese workers. Taiwan was the more popular place until recently, although Japan has sort of overtaken. I have heard that the Japanese government sort of took an interest in having more come from Vietnam because, as I mentioned earlier, the rising wages in China impacted that. I think with the growth of bilateral relations between Japan and Vietnam as well, there's been a growing number of people who see benefits and who profit from the movement of people as well. So I think that contributes to it as well. And there is a fairly close relationship between the two countries now, between Japan and Vietnam, which helps to smooth the flow of people as well. I tend to think that when issues arise, the Japanese government sort of turns a blind eye, and this kind of relationship between the two countries is a contributor as well. And because of this, there is a lot of resistance to the kind of work that we do on behalf of or advocating for the laborers. Next question has to do with the possibility of moving on to a renewed or a different kind of system. Thank you for that question. our consultations with technical interns have sometimes involved women who became pregnant. These were people who are working in the health elderly care sector. And where we have been consulted, we have found the employers to be fairly understanding towards this, and so we haven't often had employers, at least in that sector, rushing to fire or turn away workers that become pregnant. But this can be a problem in other work areas. I had a couple of slides with various slides, but that things are not worsening. Having said that, there continues to be the major issue of the costs up front that people have to pay in order to get to Japan. Many of them have paid 1 million to 1.5 million yen before they arrive in Japan in order to get here. I expect that the same sort of situation applies to people in the elderly care worker area as well. We have gradually gained experience through these various consultations in dealing with the different sort of characteristic problems that are faced by people in the different sector areas. One of the particularities of the elderly care sector is that neither the employer nor the person coming to Japan come here with a view. There's no limit to the length of time that they can be in Japan. So it's unlike a lot of the other sectors in which people come to work. The employers are able to think in terms of having the workers stay for a longer period. So this is a welcome difference between this particular sector and others. I said in my presentation that we want to improve the system so that people who come to Japan can have the option open to them of remaining in Japan for a longer period. And the fact that this is a characteristic in the elderly care sector, and it appears to lead to employers valuing their workers more than in other sectors. I think it indicates that this is a direction that we want to push for. It helps for the employers to to treat their workers as full human beings and to protect their rights more effectively. Some comments here in English that have been expressed thanks to the presenters. I just wanted to introduce their voices of thanks to all of you for the work that you have been doing and for the presentations that you offered. I echo again what Mr. Hatate said, that we want to push for an end to the problematic system that is in place now, so that it can be replaced by something that values our foreign guests and workers to be treated as full human beings. There was on the screen is a slide for the caravan that was introduced earlier as well. It begins tomorrow, so if you can remember that and welcome them in your city if it comes there. This is Mr. Tori's of the Ijuren, the Solidarity Network for migrants in Japan. So there's a website that has a calendar in it, and you can see the various events that will be happening in places along the caravan. So I ask you to please click this and like this and participate where you can. We're starting to gather some momentum and interest, so I invite and ask you to make this a successful caravan. There will be a final meeting on, I guess, a rally on the 13th of June at the center of Tokyo. So if you are in the Tokyo area, please come. Thank you very much. And Nishi-san, if you can tell us about the event that you have tomorrow going on in Hokkaido.
5月22日日曜日14時
Sunday
からこれ YouTube
tomorrow
で配
from
信され
2
ますの
o'clock.
で、
This will
こ
be a
こ後で
YouTube
これクリックできるように
this
お
will
知ら
be
せしていただければ、
can
どな
be
たでも全国ど
viewed
こ
on
からで
YouTube
も
from
参加で
anywhere.
きます。北海道で問題
So
のあっ
this
た
is the
ベトナム
kickoff
人技能
event
実
to
習
the
生
caravan.
でもうすでに帰国された方たちとつないで、北
We
海
will
道で一緒
have
にやっている労
we
働
will
組合
connect
の
with people
方が
who
こうい
were
ろんな
in
話をその
Japan
後
but
基
have
本的
returned
ど
to
うだ
their
ったと
homes,
か今どうしてる
asking them
っていうような
questions
話をしてい
about
きたいと
their
思ってますの
experience
で、
when
ぜ
they were
ひ
in
簡
Japan.
単に参加できますのでご参加いただければと
So
思っ
it's
てい
very
ます。どう
easy
ぞ
to
よろしくお願
participate.
い
We
しま
invite
す。
you all to join us if you can. So we've put the URLs in the chat, so if you can copy and paste this information or save the chat and visit this and follow the various events as the caravan moves across Japan. We would appreciate any support that you can give to it. As Mr. Hatate said earlier, it is also possible to become, if you belong to an organization, a supporting organization for this. So if you happen to be a member of an organization that might take interest in supporting this, we invite and ask you to do that as well. So as for ways in which each of us can participate and contribute to changes, participating in caravans like this and in public places is something that we can do. Now we've just passed the 4 o'clock mark, so I move on to have Sister Hirota say a few final words. You want to take the last bit here, Daniel?
So thank you very much, everyone, for being here today. And thank you, Nishi-san, Sister Mario-san. This is not just something that is viewed through the frame of statistics. This is a reality that many people face. This is something that people are daily experiencing. This is a true human rights issue and human rights violation that we need to address. It is not simply just a case of hiring someone and employing them. This is a much larger issue than just something purely that is restricted to employment. We need to look at how do we care for, what importance do we place upon the people that we are employing, and what other kinds of restrictions and what kind of lifestyles we're creating for these people. Now, one of the challenges for the church moving forward is what are the things that we each individually can do or should do. I think this is the challenge for us moving forward. One of the things that I thought is really we need to look around ourselves and to see who is around us, and first of all to make friends with those around us, and through doing that I think we can improve our understanding. I think one of the next things then is to look at, as was mentioned, the caravan, looking to the abolishment of this system. And I think the information was just shared earlier with regards to the homepage, and we can access more information. I certainly encourage people to do so. And for the information, for this information, Talitakum has provided so much fantastic information. I'm very grateful for that. Thank you, Sister Hirota, for those comments. So for today, this is the firstly, thank you to participating in today's seminar. I'd like to thank all of our speakers who presented today. And lastly, thank you to our interpreters today as well. And so that is all for today. That is the end of Talitakum's seminar. And as Talitakum, we will continue to fight against human trafficking. We thank you. We thank you for your support with us on that journey. That is all for today. Thank you very much.